Let's talk about Sony and why they refuse to cave on cross-platform despite the tremendous pressure on them to do so. You saw that ad that Microsoft and Nintendo did together. It's survived together, and it's Nintendo Switch players and Xbox players playing Minecraft together. Oh, that's so sweet, right? Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, it's just PR. They see an opportunity to make Sony look bad, and that's really why that ad was created. So they decided, Microsoft and Nintendo, to team up and create that ad to make Sony look like crap. Because currently, Nintendo and Microsoft are pretty desperate at this point. They're trailing behind Sony in the console race. Like, both of them combined don't even make up half of PlayStation 4 sales. You look at the Switch sales combined with the Xbox One sales, I believe the Switch is currently at 20 million, and the Xbox One's at like 25 million estimated. It might be a little bit more, it might be like 30. But that's still like only a little bit over half. They're like 50 million units overall, compared to Sony's 80 plus million units on the PS4. It's about to outsell the PS3's lifetime sales, and the PS4 still has like a year or two left, so it's going to outpace the last generation, which is pretty good because Sony actually did very good last generation despite their initial hiccups. But why is it that Sony is refusing to cave in on cross-platform play, even though it seems like something that the majority of players want, including their own gamers? Their own gamers want to be able to game with Xbox gamers and Nintendo gamers, and they want to have that ability to play with their friends, and they don't want this barrier to be between them, and they feel like it's unfair that this is a policy that they have. But there's a real reason why this policy is put in place in the first place, and it has nothing to do with their official reasoning as to why. Because about a year ago, I actually covered this story. It was back when this controversy first came up, was over Rocket League. Sony players and Microsoft players could not play with each other on Rocket League. So that's really where this started. Rocket League is where this whole conversation really begun. Because before that, people didn't even think about cross-platform play. It was just probably like a dream to some people. Like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be nice? But like, that's not really an actual part of main conversation. But Rocket League is really when this first started, and then Fortnite is really when it blew up completely, and people were really pressuring Sony to allow PlayStation players to connect with Xbox gamers and Nintendo gamers. And just before, people can call me a fanboy or whatever. Look, this is not me expressing my personal viewpoints on cross-platform play. It's just me trying to explain to you guys why they are doing what they're doing from an economic standpoint, at least. If you want my personal viewpoint on cross-platform play, look, I think it's a great idea, and I think that I'm not going to say I think Sony should do it, because they're ultimately going to do what's in their interest, and they feel like the cross-platform play is not in their best interest. And I'm going to talk about that later. But I do think cross-platform play is a good idea, and I wish it was a thing. So this isn't me against cross-platform play, or against anything like that. I ultimately believe that it would probably be good for the consumer, because they're not going to be restricted, especially if you're a type of gamer that plays on multiple platforms and you just decide to buy that one version of the game, but then you can't play with your friends even though you already own the game, or even if more so if you don't own a PlayStation console and you do own all these games, but you can't play with your friends. It's just it sucks. It really does suck. And I am with these people on this, but I don't think they understand it from Sony's perspective. And it's really important in understanding Sony's perspective before we keep going with this debate. So currently, like I said previously, Sony is completely dominating the console market. Okay? And keep in mind, I'm saying the console market. There's a reason why they're allowing you to play with mobile users and PC users, because they don't see PC gamers and mobile gamers as a threat to their bottom line. There's a specific reason why they're allowing those players to connect to PlayStation players on Fortnite. But they're not allowing Xbox and Nintendo players to connect. And that's for a reason, because they view Xbox and Nintendo as more of a threat to their bottom line than the PC gaming and mobile gaming ecosystems. They feel like those are just completely separate, and allowing them to come in isn't really going to hurt them at all, because people, at the end of the day, are going to have their mobile phones. They're really not going to say, oh man, I can't do cross-platform play, so I'm going to go and get Fortnite on the PlayStation instead of my mobile phone or PC. Like, PC gamers are PC gamers, console gamers are console gamers, and mobile gamers are mobile gamers. Sony doesn't really see them as one group. They see them as three separate entities. And Sony wants to be the king, and they currently are. They're on top of the console industry right now. And they don't want to... They don't feel like they need to give... They don't feel like they need to give Microsoft and Nintendo any favors right now. And they feel like giving them that favor of connecting to PlayStation gamers is actually going to hurt them in the long run, because, like I said, Sony is on top of the console world right now, and some people might be wondering, well, then why? Like, how would it hurt Sony if you allow Xbox players and Nintendo players to connect to Fortnite with them? And this extends beyond Fortnite, by the way. This is pretty much this debate. Like, ultimately, is whether or not cross-platform should be a thing on everything, really. I mean, because after Fortnite, people are going to talk about Call of Duty. This should have cross-platform. Battlefield should have cross-platform. And that's what Sony is afraid of. At the end of the day, Sony wants you to buy their version of the game. They want you to buy the PlayStation 4 version of Fortnite. Well, I know you can't buy Fortnite, but still, they want their money coming into the PlayStation 4 version of Fortnite, and they feel like if you have the Nintendo Switch version of Fortnite and the Xbox version of Fortnite, not really having a reason to buy one over the other, meaning you have cross-platform. That's really the only reason why one person would buy that version over the other version is what friends they're playing with, you know what I'm saying? So without cross-platform play, that really... I'm saying with cross-platform play, that kind of gets rid of that incentive. If you know what I'm saying. I know the past few seconds have been just gibberish, but I'm trying to get a point across here. Let me see if I could phrase it better. So, I personally, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I own a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One. Okay. And I buy the version of the game depending on which of my friends plays on whichever platform. For example, if I have one friend that plays Call of Duty on the Xbox, I'm going to be less inclined to buy the Xbox version than if, let's say, 10 of my friends are playing on the PlayStation 4 version, okay? And Sony is counting on that, because Sony has the largest install base, so chances are, if you do by any chance own multiple consoles, and there are a lot of people that do, you're going to be more likely to pour money into their platform because you're going to have more people that are playing their version of the game. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing as to why Sony is not really caving in on the cross-platform, because they feel like if they do, there's going to be less of a reason to buy their version over the other. And I keep reiterating this point every now and then. The main source of revenue for a console manufacturer is their third-party titles that are on the PlayStation Store. So I'm talking about your Call of Duty, your Battlefield, all of those games that are on the PlayStation Store that are being sold, usually multi-platform games. They are the ones that sell the most. Not first-party games, not the consoles itself. They actually sell the consoles for a loss. It's the third-party games on the PlayStation Store, okay? So since Sony is on top of the world right now, they don't see any reason to cave in on this, because they really don't have to. You can have all this pressure you want, but ultimately, it's really not going to hurt them, because they're still on top of the industry, and they don't feel like they need to do any favors for Microsoft gamers or Nintendo gamers, because ultimately they're not pouring money into their platform. Because let's say you're an Xbox gamer that doesn't have a PlayStation 4, Sony doesn't see the reason as to why they should allow you to play on their servers when you don't support their platform in the first place. So those are really the main two reasons as to why Sony's not caving on this. First of all, it may hurt their bottom line in the long run, especially if, let's say, Microsoft and Nintendo become more competitive. They still want you to have that incentive to buy the PlayStation version over the other one. Reason number two is that they just don't have a reason to. They don't have a reason to enable cross-platform play. Even though Sony has been kind of like losing their reputation as like this pro-consumer, wonderful company, like back in 2013 when they had the used game thing, and people were like, wow, Sony is so pro-consumer. They are kind of losing that a lot, but at the end of the day, all Sony cares about is the numbers. They don't care about making people happy. They don't care about making the gaming community happy. They care about increasing their profit margin as much as possible, and people need to understand that. As far as how you can get Sony to cave in on this, I'm honestly not sure. Because, I mean, I guess if it really comes to a point where, let's say, the Xbox and the Nintendo platforms really, increase their install base, and they're pretty much on par with Sony, and Sony's not, pretty much on top, then I guess you can pressure them into doing it because, oh, look, your two biggest competitors that are actually bigger than you right now are doing this cross-platform thing, and you aren't. So I guess that would bring pressure for Sony to change, but like I said, if they're on top of the world, they don't cave into pressure because at the end of the day, more people play their platform than any other platform. People are still going to play their version of Fortnite because it's the most popular version of Fortnite besides the mobile phone version. And there's really not much that can be done about it as it currently stands right now. If it's really a big issue for you, then I guess the only thing I could say is to not support Sony, but at the end of the day, there's really not much incentive on Sony's part to change this policy. So I hope I clarified a little bit for you guys as to why this is happening. I know a lot of people are confused and they're outraged, and understandably so. But at the end of the day, Sony is a corporation, and they're going to do whatever they feel will increase their profit margins and make them more profitable. And that is making sure people play the PlayStation 4 version of their game. And if you just have this cross-platform thing going on, and if you open up your platform to other consoles, then they feel like that incentive kind of goes away and it hurts their bottom line in the long run. And they might not be wrong about that either, because, like I said, that's the main source of income for console manufacturers is their third-party software sales. So if you just open it up to everything, then they kind of feel like, well, that's going to be an issue. So I hope you guys got more clarity on this situation. Let me know what you guys think about cross-platform in general and if it's going to eventually happen. I know Epic Games says that it's just inevitable for Sony to cave in on this, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. Because Fortnite's been out for about a year now, and it still doesn't seem likely for Sony to change. So, I don't know, only time can tell, but I'm going to stick by my guts here and say that they're not going to cave into the pressure, at least this generation, probably not. Maybe next generation, if it becomes more of an issue for them, that it becomes like, oh, these consoles have it, but your console doesn't. Like, come next generation, where there's pretty much a reset button, and Sony isn't on top because the new consoles just came out, and the Xbox and Switch become more competitive to them, then they might be more inclined to probably cave in on that at that point. Because if it becomes an issue where people refuse to buy your console because the other consoles have a feature that you guys do not have, then that might make Sony change. But this generation, the 8th generation, don't expect it to happen at all. So, yeah, that's about all. Peace out.